this is Amanda Loggins for Neurobiology of Addiction, Week 5. There are numerous aspects of this article that are important for anyone who's working with an individual who is suffering from an opiate addiction. One of the main points that stands out in this article is the fact that the term overdose doesn't necessarily mean that a person has an elevated amount of opiates in their system compared to their typical dose at the time of their death. The second point that stands out to me is the information related to classical conditioning and addiction of opiates. These 2 points are important to keep in mind when working with those who are suffering from an opiate addiction. In most cases, when people are seeking treatment, they will not stop partaking in opiates cold turkey, and this will be pertinent information to share. The brain becomes trained over time how to react in certain situations, including how to respond when opiates are introduced into one's system. Most individuals who consume opiates will have a favorite spot they go to in order to get high. The brain learns of this location and tells the body how to respond when this location and opiates being introduced into their system pair up. It's when these 2 circumstances do not pair up appropriately is when outcomes can turn fatal because the brain doesn't know how to respond to the situation at hand. An individual can be accustomed to taking a certain amount of opiates on a daily basis. However, if they change up where they ingest them, this could lead to a fatal outcome. The outcome hinges on how the brain reacts in any given situation. There are a few ways to go about explaining this research to a client who's dealing with opiate addiction. Some people would go straight to all the scientific facts and most likely bore the person they're trying to explain this information to. However, I would like to make this information more relatable to the person. Human beings are habitual creatures. This is especially important to individuals who are dealing with addictions. A person goes out and buys their drug of choice, and for this instance, we're going to focus on opiates. Once this person has acquired their substance, they return to a location they are accustomed to being at. Then the person ingests their acquired substance. Each time the person acquires their substance of choice, they repeat the cycle, always returning to the same location in order to get high. The brain picks up these signals of their surroundings and begins to correlate this location with the intake of opiates. Due to this correlation, the body and the brain become accustomed to said location and getting high. This is also known as becoming conditioned. It's when there's an upset to this conditioning where things can take a turn for the worse. When a death is labeled an overdose, it doesn't necessarily mean the person has a higher than normal level of an abused substance in their system. A disruption in their conditioning, such as ingesting opiates of the same dose in a new to them location, can cause the brain to react in a different way, leading to a fatal outcome. When a person ingests opiates in a new to them location, the brain doesn't have the correlation to make the connection and tell the brain how to respond in this situation, hence leading to death by overdose. The practical advice that I can offer based upon this research is that it's common for individuals who want to move away from a life of drugs to relapse. However, it's important to not hide the facts by administering opiates in locations that are different from what they're used to. By administering opiates in different locations than what the body and brain is used to has the potential to have a fatal outcome. The brain is a powerful organism, and it's able to read one's surroundings and tell the body how to respond accordingly. In the case of addiction and classical conditioning, the brain determines whether or not an intake of opiates at a level an individual is used to will be fatal or not, all based on their location at the time of intake. Basically, it comes down to not ingesting opiates in new locations just to hide the fact of relapse, because an individual is ashamed or not wanting friends and family to know about the relapse. Opiates are dangerous, and even a smaller than accustomed dose of opiates could be fatal if the brain does not respond correctly.